Hello, I'm Christine Manning with the Wine Education Institute. Welcome to our advanced tours of the wines of Italy. This video is designed as a deep dive into the foundational elements of Italian viticulture. We will begin by exploring the labeling laws and classification systems that apply to all of Italy, essential knowledge for your advanced wine studies. Once we have established this framework, we will focus specifically on northern Italy. We will cover the geography, climate, and key winemaking techniques that define the north, followed by a detailed look at the regions and its grape varieties. Central and southern Italy are extensive enough to warrant their own deep dives, which you can find in subsequent videos in this series. Let's dive in. Italy's viticultural landscape is dominated by two major mountain ranges. Located in the north, the Alps form a massive barrier that protects vineyards from northern winds and excessive rainfall. Secondly, the Apennines run like a spine down the length of the Italian peninsula. This altitude plays a vital role in the warmer climates of central and southern Italy. It provides a diurnal range, warmth during the day for grapes to ripen, then cooling off at night that allows the grapes to retain acidity and aromatic complexity. I like to think of this as leaving your grapes out on a sunny windowsill during the day and putting them in a refrigerator at night. There's also a maritime influence. As a narrow peninsula, no vineyard is very far from the sea, allowing for breezes to provide with a moderating influence on our Mediterranean climate. While Italy is often associated with that Mediterranean climate, there is a fair amount of climatic diversity affected by latitude and topography. Northern Italy is generally characterized by a moderate continental climate with cool winds and relatively short summers, and more fluctuation in temperature and types of precipitation. Central and southern Italy is predominantly Mediterranean, with hot, dry summers and mild, wet winters. In these regions, altitude and sea breezes are the primary cooling factors that ensure balanced ripening. To account for much of the warmth and humidity, historically, growers used the pergola system. Here, vine canopies are trained high, with fruit hanging below a horizontal leafy canopy. This protects grapes from sunburn and allows for air circulation to minimize rot in humid locations. High-density planting using vertical shoot positioning, or VSP, is where shoots are trained vertically to form a narrow canopy. This is becoming more common to manage growth and give more harvesting options. Italy's existing wine laws fit well into the structure that was later implemented by the EU, with some Italian categories having more specific regulations. We'll start by looking at our specific Italian terms. Our broadest and least restrictive category for PGI wines in Italy is IGT or IGP. This category allows producers significant latitude in location, varieties, and room to experiment outside our more traditional DOC or DOCG rules. An example could be a Super Tuscan labeled under IGP. Moving into PDO classifications, our first level is DOC. These wines have to follow specific geographical boundaries, permitted grape varieties, and production methods. The highest tier are DOCG wines for controllata e garantita. These wines will have same plus stricter regulations than DOC wines. In Italy, DOC and DOCG wines are two distinct and non-interchangeable terms. To achieve DOCG status, producers must meet additional requirements. A few examples could be wines must be bottled within the area of production. They must have been a DOC for 10 years, and DOCG wines have to be tested by a government panel to assure quality assurance. However, there are some DOCG status regions that could declassify to DOC or IGP. This might be if a producer wants to release a wine before the minimum aging time required by a DOCG. For example, Nebbiolo coming from Piedmont that is released before meeting the minimum aging requirements of the DOCGs there. Two additional words you want to watch out for on labels are Classico, which means grapes are coming from the original historic center of a wine region. These are usually the best, hilliest sites because this is where you would put your royalty and elite to protect them from impending attacks back in the day. Nowadays, though, this land is dedicated to vineyards. And as we touched on before, hills play an important role in grape flavor and acid balance. Adding Classico gives a distinction from some of the vineyards on flatter areas that may be more focused on volume. Not every region can be eligible for Classico. Another term you want to be familiar with is Riserva, which indicates a wine has a higher alcohol and has been aged for longer than the other minimum requirements. Now that we've covered the basics for all of Italy, let's move to northern Italy, or the top of the boot. Northern Italy serves as a barrier between the rest of Europe and our Italian peninsula, defined by the Alps to the north and the Apennines to the south. Piemonte literally means at the foot of the mountain. Piedmont is one of those regions that definitely deserves its reputation, and it can pop up on exams, so it's a region you do want to have a solid handle on. So as the name suggests, the Alps play an important role in this region by protecting it to the north and west by creating a rain shadow. The climate is moderate continental. It's famous for morning fogs, which can help ripen the grapes slowly, but it can cause disease pressure, so grape growing here is an art form. In addition to altitude, Lake Garda provides a moderating influence that helps prevent frost and extreme temperature swings. Vineyards here are all at altitude. The best sites are on steep, south-facing slopes of anywhere from 150 up to 600 meters. The wines of Piedmont played an important role in creating a reputation of high-quality, varietal-focused Italian wines. The most famous grape here is Nebbiolo, the grape of kings and the king of grapes. In the glass, it is pale in color, but do not let that fool you. Nebbiolos have high acidity, high tannin, and can be high in alcohol. They have red cherry, rose, and violet notes, which can develop into complex aromas of tar, truffles, and leather with age. Basically, it combines the finesse of Pinot Noir with the structure of Cabernet Sauvignon, but with a character unlike either. It can make remarkable sparkling wines and reds that can age for half of a century. Barolo DOCG is the most prestigious appellation in this region. Vineyards are on steep, south-facing slopes. By law, Barolo must be aged for 3 years before release, with 18 months in oak. Only then can it be released in January, 4 years after harvest. Barbaresco DOCG is a nearby region also focusing on Nebbiolo. It's slightly lower in altitude and warmer, so the grapes ripen earlier and is often fruitier. It requires 2 years of aging with 9 months in oak. Between these two, Barolo is referred to as the king because it can be powerful and structured, and Barbaresco as the queen with finesse and softer edges. Either way, traditionally, these high tannins were softened by long aging in large oak casks called botti. Today, traditionally large oak or small French barrels are used, and these wines can be aged further in the bottle to soften tannins and develop tertiary aromas. Piedmont isn't just Nebbiolo. In fact, Barbera is the most planted grape in Piedmont, and it creates food-friendly wines that are ready to release sooner than Nebbiolo. Barbera has deep color, low to medium tannins, and high acidity. It can smell of red cherries and plums. The best examples come from Barbera d'Asti, DOCG. Styles can vary widely from fruity and youthful to oak-aged with spice-like components. Dolcetto means little sweet one. Dolcetto ripens earlier than the others, so it can be planted on our cooler sites. Has a deep purple color, medium to high tannin, but more medium in acid. It creates distinctively fruity wines, often with a bitter finish. The best come from Dolcetto d'Alba. Shifting to our white grapes, in the southeast region of Piedmont, we have Gavi DOCG. The grape is Cortese. It is naturally high in acid. Wines are pale, light-bodied with aromas of citrus, green apple, and blossom. Winemakers will use protective winemaking like stainless steel to keep it fresh. It's a nice alternative to some of our quaffable Pinot Grigios. Moving east, we hit the dual region of Trentino, Alto Adige. Alto Adige is Italy's most northerly region. Vines are planted on terraces on the southeast and southwest facing valley of the sides of the river Adige. This large diurnal range helps preserve grape acidity. The main white grape is Pinot Grigio, but here it is made in dry, light to medium styles with high acid, with citrus fruit and green fruit, with a higher quality than our inexpensive IGP Pinot Grigio. They also grow excellent Gewürztraminer and Chardonnay. Schiava is a black grape that is indigenous to this area of Italy. It will create light, fruity wines with low tannins and raspberry flavors. It was traditionally an easy-to-grow grape and had good yields even at this high altitude. Recently, more focused production and better winemaking has increased its reputation. Trentino is just to the south. The valley widens and gets slightly warmer. On the valley floor, you get medium-bodied Pinot Grigio and Chardonnay. On the slopes, the quality increases. Toraldigo is a local black grape producing wines with deep color, medium to high tannins, and high acidity. Although it's a little outside the scope of level 3, it's interesting to know Toraldigo is one of Syrah's grandparents, is a grandchild of Pinot Noir, and the parent of Logren and Marzemino. In the far northeast corner, bordering Slovenia and Austria, lies Friuli-Venezia Giulia. The climate here is moderate continental, but it is cooled significantly by cold air from the mountains. Near the Adriatic coast, it becomes warmer and more maritime influenced. Friuli is a key region for premium Pinot Grigio. Unlike the watery stuff you can get at supermarkets, here wines are medium to full-bodied with juicy peach and tropical fruit flavors. Merlot is the most planted black grape. It creates medium-bodied wines with ripe red fruit and spice from oak. Friulano is an indigenous white grape, and it produces wines with medium to high acidity, medium body, and aromas of pear, apples, and herbs. The regions to know here are Friuli-Grave, which covers the flat plains, which are ideally suited for white wines, and fresh fruit with high acidity. Collio DOC and Colli Orientali DOC are located more in the hills. Altitude and slope produce more concentrated, premium white wines that often have a rich texture. Finally, we arrive in the Veneto. This region is named after the famous floating city, which is the largest city in this region. This is a massive production area, ranging from high-volume brands to world-class wines. Our Veneto IGT and Pinot Grigio della Venezia are producing huge amounts of wines that are usually grown on flat, fertile plains. Yields are high, and grapes are harvested earlier to retain acid, resulting in neutral, light-bodied, simple wines produced in large stainless steel tanks. Just east of our fair Verona is Soave. Garganega is the grape here, with high acidity and flavors of pear, apple, and white pepper. Harvested from our flat plain, Soave is usually simple and fruity. 30 years ago, it was predominantly bulk wine, but in more recent years, it has made its way back with a reputation of higher quality through better winery practices. We can have Classico wines here, located on slopes in the foothills. These wines are medium-bodied, complex, and can age to develop honey and almond notes. Up next is Valpolicella, a masterclass in production methods. This is the most technical part of our region and a process you want to be familiar with going into your exams. In the hills northwest of Verona, the main grape is Corvina. It has thin skin, moderate color, and low to medium tannins with high acidity. To maximize flavor and tannins, winemakers have 3 distinct methods available to create 4 very different wines from the same grape. Our first standard method, which can be seen as Valpolicella DOC, will be made from fresh grapes. This will be a light-bodied, pale wine with sour cherry flavors and no oak, and is meant to be drunk young. Our Pasito method is used to increase structure, flavor, concentration, and color. Grapes will be picked early to keep acid high and dried indoors for months. The grapes will begin to raisin, losing water and concentrating sugar and flavor. Historically, this was done on wooden racks or straw mats in well-ventilated lofts high on the hillsides. Depending on the length of time and the fermentation methods, we can see a few different labeling terms that apply to our passito or air-dried grapes. Our first term is Amarone. Amarone della Valpolicella will use dried grapes that are fermented until dry. The result is a full-bodied wine with high alcohol, high tannins, and intense flavors of red berry and spice. Occasionally, you can see an off-dry level because of the high levels of natural sugar in those grapes. Another term is Ricciotto. Ricciotto della Valpolicella will be sweet. Ricciotto gets its root word from ear, referring to the grapes on the lateral edges of a bunch. These grapes will have high sugar from more sun exposure. Once harvested and air-dried, fermentation stops naturally because the sugar is so high the yeast cannot ferment to dryness. The result is a sweet, full-bodied red wine. Another winemaking method is ripasso, where the wine is repassed or fermented twice. This uses the best of both methods, designed to boost structure and flavor of a standard Valpolicella. Slightly before fermentation of Amarone della Valpolicella is complete, our high concentration wine is drained off of the skins. Finished Valpolicella wine is then added into this vat containing these unpressed skins. There still will be remaining sugar on the Amarone skins, which is then fermented by the yeast that is present in our vat. The secondary fermentation on the skin will help extract additional color, flavor, and tannins into the Valpolicella. The finishing result is a wine that is medium to full-bodied with medium to high tannins. The flavor profile typically features stewed red fruit, cherries, and plums with a style that is more intense than at Amarone and will be labeled as Valpolicella Ripasso. Let's recap our important northern Italy. We started in Piedmont, the land of fog and Alps. We saw how Nebbiolo produces pale but powerful, age-worthy wines of Barolo and Barbaresco. We also noted the high-acid Barbera and fruity Dolcetto. We moved to Trentino, Alto Adige, and Friuli-Venezia Giulia, where a moderate climate and altitude can create premium white wines. Pinot Grigio of Friuli-Venezia Giulia can be distinguished for its quality as opposed to our simple export styles from the plains. And finally, we decoded Veneto from Pinot Grigio to Garganega and Soave and focused heavily on Valpolicella. Remember, Corvina and the hierarchy of fresh grapes gives us Valpolicella. Dried grapes via the passito method are used for dry Amarone and sweet Ricciotto. Reprocessing skins in the ripasso method gives us Valpolicella Ripasso. Northern Italy is a study in how geography, specifically mountains and Lake Garda, and human technique, specifically drying grapes and aging, can create a massive diversity of styles. Thank you for watching, and good luck with your studies. Cheers.